Hi, I'm Oak Anthony, and today I am bringing you along with me while I draw. Sunday Love is a YouTuber currently living in Japan, documenting her very charming life. I discovered her pretty early on in quarantine last year, like around the March era, when things first began, and I was completely hooked on her content. It's like a combination of cozy and aesthetic and entertaining. I really love it. And she is a big fan of ramen. So, I got an idea for a piece of art to make. Sunday plus ramen. And then I begin my research. I look at photos of Sunday and I decide visually what I'm going for. And in this part of the process, sometimes I'll peruse my art books, but I'm really hooked on this beautiful portrait that came across my Tumblr dashboard. It's by a really prolific traditional painter. Her name is Kelsey Beckett. You've probably seen some of her art before. She does really dreamy portraits. And I feel like this vibe would go really well with what I'm envisioning for Sunday and ramen. So last video, I talked about stealing. So in this part of the process, I am going to be stealing from Kelsey. Let me just take a quick step back here and say that Kelsey actually gets stolen from a lot in unethical manners. There have been people who just resell her art as their own, selling prints, selling t-shirts, that sort of thing. But there are even people who trace her art and try to pass it as their own style. And that is bad. That is unethical. In my method, I am going to be doing what I talked about in last week's video, where I'm going to find the resources that she has shared, consume them, and see if I can implement some of her techniques into my own stuff. And luckily, Kelsey, like a lot of artists on the internet, have some really great insights into her process. She actually has a YouTube channel. I will absolutely link it for you below. You can watch her paint, and I did. And like a good student, I took notes. I don't usually take notes, but I thought it would look nice. A very, very clean sketch is cornerstone in Kelsey's technique. So that's something when you're first studying an artist and trying to figure out how they do the things they do that you want to try to emulate, narrow down where their focus is. And with Kelsey, she's a very precise painter. She's a very precise sketcher. So I followed that same technique. I sketched Sunday very precisely, trying to get something clean, and I actually enjoyed this a lot, like way more than I thought I would. It's like inking, but in a more painterly way. And I guess I should mention here that Kelsey does the bulk of her work traditionally. I work almost exclusively digitally, so I am pulling all of this into a digital format with, mixed results. For good back health, I painted on my easel for a few hours after sketching on my bed. I realized pretty quickly that Kelsey's technique of focusing on one specific part of her canvas would not work for me. You can see that she really narrows in on like the eyes, the nose, the lips, and then kind of connects them. I can't operate like that. I tried, and I couldn't do it. So I went back to my own method, which is applying big swaths of color and slowly over time adding more detail. One thing that I did keep from Kelsey's techniques is the underpainting. If you are familiar with traditional painting at all, you'll know that underpainting is very common. It's basically just laying down some blankets of color before you go in and add the correct colors on top of it. So like, you know, if you're painting me, you might lay down just like a wash of pink, and then on the top of that you will add, you know, my skin color. So I kept that, and I actually did do a swath of pink underneath Sunday before going on with my own coloring technique, which is just big blocks of color that I slowly, over time, narrow down more and more detailed. When drawing someone's likeness, I really think it's important to keep a reference image up. So I did that the entire time that I painted Sunday. I had an image from her Instagram up on my canvas at all times. And even with that added boost, I really struggled to keep the piece looking like her. I kept veering off a little bit and having to pull back. I think it's close at the end, but it's not quite perfect. But that's, you know, why we keep practicing. That is just art in a nutshell, is it's not quite what you wanted, but you just gotta keep going. It's worth mentioning that the brushes I'm using in this piece are Stephanie Pepper's brushes. I mentioned her last week as well, and I'll put links down below. They're really soft. This soft fill brush is really dreamy and helps kind of capture that soft vibe that I was going for. Now, I was painting after work, so I put in a full day of illustrating before this, and then I put in a full night of painting digitally, and it's not always easy to juggle doing all of that, so pace yourself. And I started really running out of steam at around 11 o'clock at night, and I rushed myself to the end because I didn't want to spend more than like 6 hours on this, especially because I wanted to include it in a video for this week. So I kind of had a deadline. I usually don't draw with a deadline, but this one I had one. So rushing to that finish line led to a piece that I did not like. I was really unhappy, actually. So I slept on it, and when I woke up the next morning, I sat down with it for just an extra 30 minutes, not even, less than 30 minutes, tweaking a few things, and voila, the piece turned out the way I intended. And here we are. Here is Ramen Goddess, aka Sunday Love. Using Kelsey Beckett's techniques and trying to accurately represent Sunday's likeness were both big challenges, but whether or not I succeeded, I know that I learned a lot, which is kind of the point of doing exercises like this. You know, when you're practicing another artist's technique, it's not going to be seamless, but it is going to teach you something, and I learned that I really love sketching clean. I'm actually going to implement something like that going forward with everything that I do. And anyways, that's the whole process, basically, beginning to end. I posted the piece up on my Instagram and on Twitter, which you can find at Oak Anthony. And you can also subscribe here if you're interested in more artsy content. As of this recording, I'm almost at 100 subs, which is really cool. Thank you so much to anybody who's given me any encouragement. Anytime someone subscribes, I get really excited. So, and I want to do a special shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much to everybody who's supporting me over on Patreon. I will link that as well. So I'll see you again very soon. Thank you for hanging out with me. Bye.